always hard to stop in the middle of such a beautiful Kol Torah. It's a tremendous chus and a cover for us that the Rashiva is going to address us momentarily. The Rashiva takes an invested interest in the well-being and the growth of every Bakr here in Mechina. Not too long he had that when the Rashiva came, took from his time to give a faher to one of the classes on his way out. He looked into the 7th grade classes. It was tremendous nachas for the Rashiva. It's a tremendous nachas and a source of chizuk for myself and for the yeshiva that each and every single one of you came here today to join us here in yeshiva. The Gemara we began said, "Vafilu anisha b'Yisrael layochel ad sheyesib." So one of the Bacharim were ma'ira. They asked the question, "What's the lashon vafilu anisha b'Yisrael layochel?" The Gemara that we began learning today, ad sheyesib. It should have said, "Vafilu anisha b'Yisrael tzarich leisib." I maybe get me medina siyam tzarich sheyayim b'fanei nachtav. It doesn't say I maybe get me medina siyam lo yitnin ad. And the teretz I think is that throughout the history of Klal Yisrael, from the Inquisition to the Crusades to the Bolsheviks to communism to the Holocaust, Rahman al-Islam, and even in the year 2022, there's going to be people, refugees from Ukraine. Vafilu anisha b'Yisrael. The definition, they're refugees, they have nothing. But just as Klal Yisrael always sat beheseba, like Rashi says, derech cherus, the night of the Seder, non-conditional to the circumstances that they were in, and we continue to sit beheseba zeicha lecherus. But how could we? How was a Yid in the concentration camp or in Siberia or in communist Russia hiding in a cellar able to sit leil seder beheseba? Because the teretz is cherus is not confined to the area that you're in. Cherus by a Yid is in the frame of mind. If it's me, my Torah, with the Rabbeinu Shalom, then no matter where I am, whatever the circumstances is, I am a Ben Chayrim. Vafilu anisha b'Yisrael lo yoichal ad. Even on anisha b'Yisrael, it's not limited to financial. If somebody, whatever matzav is he in, he shouldn't eat ad until he's able to bring his mind to a frame of mind that no matter where I am a Ben Chayrim. Don't sit down to the Seder ad sheyesib until you come to the recognition, up until you recognize that you're not limited to your circumstances. Because cherus and freedom is in the frame of mind that you're in. Today's Limud HaTorah, today's Seder is testament to the nitzchias of Klal Yisrael. That we recognize that our survival has been and will continue to only be when a father and son sit together. And this is our beginning of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and this is the greatest preparation of how we go into the Yontif of Pesach. It's a tremendous covet for myself and a schos for all of us to ask the Rashiva to say a few words.
Thank you for coming and participating. It's wonderful to watch. The Hemshech HaDoires. We just read yesterday the Parshas HaChodesh. Parshas HaChodesh talks about the mitzvahs on Pesach at night. Somehow the month of Nisan connects to the Geula. Not only Pesach itself, the Yontif of Pesach, the Tesvav until Chod Beis, but the whole month is the month of Geula. As we say, La'agod Yochel Rosh Chodesh, Na'ulera B'Yemahu, is a Havamina that from Rosh Chodesh already you have to eat matzah, morah. So somehow Chodesh Nisan connects to the Geula. As we know, B'Nisan Nigalu, B'Nisan Asikin Nigoel, it connects to the month. And the truth is that Rahman al-Islam, the opposite, Avelis also connects to the month. And Navi describes the Tzoymois, Tzoym Harvi, the Tzoym HaChamishi, the Tzoym HaShvi, Yiv L'Sasim L'Simcha. It's attributed to the month. What's the connection between the month and the Geula, or the opposite, Rahman al-Islam, the Avelis? So Mefarshim explain, and really Mefarshim Hanach, that Klal Yisrael Bichlal is Nimshal to the moon, to the Levana. And Malchus Beis David Bifrat. When we say Kiddush Levana, we say David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. How does David HaMelech come in to Kiddush Levana? What shaykhs does David HaMelech have in Kiddush Levana? David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. And the Mefarshim explain, based on Psukim and Tanakh, that compare Malchus David to the Levana. The moon has a cycle. The cycle of the moon starts when the moon has a little bit of light, and little by little until the middle of the month, the moon gets more and more and more light until the middle of the month. And in the middle of the month, then the moon starts going down, the light gets darker and darker until the end of the month. The Gemara says, Chav Dalet Shoy Mirsi Siyava. For 24 hours you can't see the moon at all. So too Klal Yisrael and Malchus Beis David, which represents the strength of Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael's Malchus, when Klal Yisrael shines to the world in its fullest glory, when the Kavod HaShechina is there, the top. So then, that's when the moon is going up. When the moon goes up, Klal Yisrael is shining into the world. Klal Yisrael is giving the world Kedusha and Tahara and morals and ethics. And then, Rahman al-Islam, there are times when Klal Yisrael diminishes. And we're in Golus, and Klal Yisrael is not shining the way we're supposed to, and then it goes down and down. However, the Mefarshim explain that just like the moon has a cycle, Klal Yisrael also has a cycle. There were times in the time of the Beis HaMikdash when then Klal Yisrael was in its full glory, and then came the Churban Bayis Rishon, and that was the end of the month. And then came Bayis Sheni, and then came the long Golus that we're still in. And we're muftach that Be'ezer Hashem one day will come, and then will be the Gula Shlema. So when Klal Yisrael says Kiddush Levana, Klal Yisrael is not only being Mekadosh the moon, the Levana itself, but Klal Yisrael is declaring every month that the history of Klal Yisrael is doimet to the moon. And just like in the darkest moments when it diminishes and goes down, as Rabbi Stein mentioned, through the Spanish Inquisition and the Crusaders and the Holocaust and Tach V'Tat, all the different tzaras that Klal Yisrael went through. But Klal Yisrael will always come back. And every month we reiterate this. David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. Klal Yisrael is Chai, Klal Yisrael is Kayim. Klal Yisrael will continue. Therefore, the Geula is attributed to the month. And Rahman al-Islam, the Churban, is attributed to the month. Because the month, the Chodesh, the moon, is what represents the whole history of Klal Yisrael. And Rabbi Nebuchai explains, and it's brought down in the Ramah, that's when we dance by Kiddush Levana. Why are we dancing by Kiddush Levana? What's so happy about it? It's because when the moon comes back and starts enlightening the world again, it's Dugmas Klal Yisrael coming back and enlightening the world with Kedusha and with Tahara. So that's a time for Mechoilus V'Rikudim, as will be L'asi Lavoi, Zel Elokeinu Kivinu Loi, will be the time of Simcha. So a Me'ein, a Dugma of that Simcha we have every single month. And therefore the Geula is attributed to the whole month, not only to the time of the Geula itself, which is Pesach at night. Therefore we come together now, as Rabbi Stein mentioned, to be Mamshich the Doiros. We come together to prove the existence of Klal Yisrael, even though we're in a Churban, we're in times that are darker, but still there's a tremendous beam of light, which is the Or HaTorah, which comes together in its highest form when a father learns with the son. I recently heard a Gavaldik Avard in the name of Rav Hutner. Pasuk says by Amalek, by Yermi Moshe Yeshua B'chal Lonu Anoshim. So Rashi on that pasuk says, what's B'chal Lonu Anoshim? B'chal L'cho Anoshim. So Rashi says, Hishvo Kvoidoi L'Kvoi Talmidoi. He says, Lonu is me and you. He made himself equal, Moshe Rabbeinu to Yeshua. And he was giving covet. This v'chazal know, Yikvoi Talmid Chalchav Olecha Kishalcha. So Rav Hutner asked, why is this the place where the Torah teaches us, Yikvoi Talmid Chachav Alecha Kisholcha. So he said a wonderful answer. He said at the end of the parsha over there it says, Mulchama Hashem Ba'amolek Midor Dor. Why does it say Mulchama Hashem Ba'amolek Midor Dor? It say La'olam. Why is the emphasis on Dor? And he said Amalek understands the Nakuda of how to be able to come and hit Klal Yisrael. The Tzorei Yisrael generally knew the Nakuda where they can get Klal Yisrael. They knew how to, they had a feeling of it. And Amalek understood that the way to get Klal Yisrael is Midor Dor, to try to get the link between the generations. When one would think that the father is from a generation before, he thinks differently, his musagim are different. There's a generation gap. And Amalek tries to get that generation gap. And through that, to be able to hit Klal Yisrael and affect Klal Yisrael. Milchama Lashem ba'Amalek midor dor. Amalek goes from one door to the next, trying to break that chain, because he knows that's the weak point, going from one generation to the next, when there could be a generation gap, a difference of thinking, difference of doing the ways of doing things as it goes from one door to the next. And lately, the further away we get from Har Sinai, we see the gap gets larger and larger. So that's where Amalek hits. What's the antidote? The antidote to this is Yikvoid Talmid Chachav Alecha Kisholcha, is the relationship between a Rebbe and a Talmud. That the Rebbe is Mechabed the Talmud, the Rebbe brings the Talmud in, and he says there will be no gap, we're going to continue. Kvoid Talmid Chachav Alecha Kisholcha. The covet of my Talmud is important to me. I give him covet, even if there's a gap, I bring him into me, we're one, we're together. In a certain way, there's covet harav to the Talmud, but in another way, there's the Talmud coming to the Rav. And we're going to continue that midor dor, and that's the antidote to Amalek. So therefore, the Torah teaches us over here, Bechar lonu anoshim. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Yeshua, even though Moshe Rabbeinu was a gadol mikol adam, but in a certain sense we were together. He's bringing him in. There's going to be a continuation between Moshe and Yeshua. And that will be the antidote to Midor Dor, the Milchemes Amalek. So we're here together to be Mechazik, the B'charlonu Anoshim, the connection between one door to the next, between father to son, which is the strongest connection we can have. And this is the antidote to Amalek. This is the answer to Amalek. This is the answer of the continuity of Klal Yisrael, of the Levana being Mischadish, of the Chag and the Chodesh HaGeula, is to come together and learn Torah. And we learn Torah together, a father and son. This is how we're Mechazik, Klal Yisrael, and this is how we bring light into the world. And this is how Klal Yisrael shines and goes from one door to the next, and does not allow Amalek to come in with all the technologies that we have, and with all the distractions and all the new things that come. We show ourselves and Klal Yisrael that we're going to continue this connection between the father and son. Rabbi Stein was talking about the continuity of Klal Yisrael. I just want to add on one story, which Rabbi Yankel Galinsky used to say over. He was in communist Russia, and he was walking on the street, and there was a Yid who Nebuch was one of the higher commanders in the, then it was the NKVD, today it's the KGB, but he was in the secret police in Russia. And he's walking on the street, and he somehow bumps into him, and he says, maybe you know who is a moil. And he figured it might be a trap. He said, I don't know, I'm not sure, there's no such thing today, we can't do bris milah. And he kept on asking him, and finally he saw that he was sincere, and he said, yeah, I know a moil. So he told him that he should come on this and this day, at this and this time to the house, and he had a child and he wants to do it bris milah. And so he said, fine. He said, I'm not going to be there. I can't be there because it's too dangerous for me to be there. But I want you to come and do a bris milah on my son. So he came that morning with her mother, and he still thought it was a trap. So they opened the door, and the shikts answered the door, and they wanted to see what's going on, and they were careful, and then they figured out it was sincere, and they went in. And in the back room was a child, and they did a bris milah on the child, and then they were gonna leave. So she said, no, you can't leave so fast. I said, why not? She said, because he told us that I should give you a few loaves of bread, and she made breakfast for them. At the time it was impossible to get food in Russia, and she served them a king's breakfast, and they left. So 2-3 weeks later, he met this person on the street, and he asked him, Yaakov Galinsky asked him, said, Zogmir, why did you do it? You're an atheist, you're a KGB agent, very high up, you can get yourself into trouble, tell me, why did you do it? So he told him, I'll tell you why I did it. He said, you think I don't know that this is not gonna last? He says, I know this isn't gonna last. How long as it will take, but one day Russia is going to be bottled. But Klal Yisrael is eternal. Klal Yisrael will be here forever. I want my son to know that he's a Yid. This is what Pesach is all about, and this is what this morning is all about. It's about connecting with your son through Torah. It's about the eternity of Klal Yisrael. We can be in Russia, we can be in America, we can be in Eretz Yisrael, we can be anywhere. But Klal Yisrael will continue. The Midor Dor will never allow the Midor Dor to penetrate, and will continue father to son, Rebbe to Talmud, with the Mahalach of Yikvoid, Talmud Chachav Alecha Kishalcha, and through that Be'ezer Hashem will bring Mashiach to King the name of Yomei.